Hello runners, Coach Bala here again. Another week, as they say, bitten the dust. Like 2 weeks of regular season is done, and it's just pretty incredible how time passes when you are in a structured program. And I'm hoping by now all of you are into a rhythm. A rhythm that lets you, when you get started, the inertia is less. Yes, there will be discomfort and all that, but by now you would have realized that that discomfort is all about the first maybe 10-20% of your run. Once the 10-20% of your run is done, things get easier. You get faster within the run. Your heart rate is stabilizing. These are good things. These are all signs of something that is transformational and magical that is happening in your body, which is the topic for today. Why this training works, what is really happening, and why you should believe. It's all about believing. So let me ask myself a provocative question on this. And the question is, hey Bala, just say a month ago, I've never run. Or maybe I've done some just okay runs. And then I get into this training program and you are telling me that just 16 weeks of training and I'll be able to do my, whatever is my target run, which seems so far away, so out of reach. There is no way I can think of me doing a half marathon, 10K full marathon right now, because I don't feel like I'm ready at all, and I don't see how, let's say, just in the next 12 weeks, I'll be ready then. Something doesn't pass my smell test. So what is really happening? Now, that's a question that I would like to answer. And it's important that all of you understand what is happening, because when you understand this, you will start paying more attention to the delicate, intricate training regimen that we put you under, because each of that is like a building block. It's like a Lego block. Each of them kind of snaps on each other. When you're putting the Legos on top of each other, you don't realize what's happening. But then there is a method to this design, and by the time you put your last Lego piece and you step back, you probably are looking at something really amazing in front of you. That is really the journey, and inside out transformation is what is happening. So let us break this down. In a medical way, if I have to define this training program, what it does is that it is a CVMSMS program. Cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, mental strength training program. That is really what we're trying to do. Cardio, vascular, muscle, skeletal, and then finally mental strength. 5 things we are focused on it. And let's just step back and talk about how this kinetic energy that your body is creating and lending itself to your body for you to propel forward, what is really happening within your body that really drives this kinetic energy, this production of kinetic energy. So there is a macro level view, there is a micro level view, and we will start from macro to micro and then see what happens. So now when you think about it, what is really the act of running? When you think about it from a perspective of muscles and bones and body and all that. At its, I'm an engineer, many of you are, so I would explain it in a plain engineering term, a coach term, and not a medical term really. At the end of the day, folks, what is really happening when you decide to run is that various muscles, legs, thighs, different parts of your body, and by the way, running is a full body workout, so pretty much every part of your body, it gets activated from your neck to shoulders to, everything down below. What it really happens is it gets signal from the brain saying that, hey, I want to run, and it sends electrical signal. And when it gets an electrical signal, muscles compress, like it just pulls back, like, that happens, right? When you get a shock, you just twitch, right? The muscle contracts because of the electrical signal. It's almost like a spring. It contracts, and then once the electrical signal stops, it just goes back to its original place. And that expansion of that original place, like a spring going forward, is the energy release that is happening, and that energy release is what is propelling you to run. So the different muscles that gets different activations, electrical signal activations in unison, when it compresses and expands, this process is what is creating the propulsive power. That is what is causing you to go forward. So this is what fundamentally is happening. So when you think about, if I want to run better, then you need to have more efficiency of this action taking place. So a couple of things that we can quickly come to. One is your brain electrical signal should reach as many muscles as possible so that more and more muscles get activated. That's simply the first one, because more muscles get activated, more muscle fibers gets compressed, and hence when more muscle fibers gets compressed, when the signal kind of stops, more muscle fibers expands, and this act of expansion, like a spring coming back, gives you the energy to move forward. So it's quite simple that we need to have as many muscles getting activated. The electrical signals from the brain is coming directly to the muscle that is needed, and it goes. It's very simple. The other way of looking at it is, if you have the spring as long as possible, then when you compress those springs, it'll expand with much higher force, right? If you think about it, take a small spring and just compress it, it'll just go, that's all. But you take a large spring and compress it, and then you release it, it'll expand at a much faster, much more powerful sort of energy release way, isn't it? That is why stretching becomes a big deal. Because when you stretch, not that just little stretch before running, not that. When you do strength training and when you stretch properly, you are really expanding the length of the muscles. And the longer the muscles are, more power you can get. So that's why yoga becomes super powerful for runners. And those of you who have done yoga, you would realize that you're getting easier and easier to run. Because yoga, by very definition, is all about tensile loading or expansion loading of the muscles, and as a result, this expansion causes an increased length of those muscle fibers if you do it over time for a good amount of time of expanded loading. So those are two things that quickly comes out of it. You will understand then why strength exercises are good, why stretching is good. All that we'll again come back to it, but it's super simple. Now, when you think about the first one, which is the electrical muscle connection, this is a very important part, because when you start running, in the example that I was mentioning, there is a lot of muscles that have not been activated for a very long time. Now, as a result, brain has forgotten how to send electrical signals to these muscles, or forgotten, or it has never used it. Take an example of your butt muscle. Your butt muscle, is an involuntary muscle. It's not as if your brain is always focused on sending signals. So that means when you're running early on, you don't use your butt muscles at all. And butt muscles are the most important muscle for powering your run. In fact, we will have very soon butt attacks, strength training workouts to activate the nerve muscle connection, so that butt gets excited, butt gets executed, so that during run you are able to power through the action of your butt muscle. This is something separately, we'll discuss that. But think about that. There are many such muscle fibers that are currently sleeping, and as a result, they are not getting activated. But when you do structured training, brain realizes that, hey, I need to start activating more muscles that I already have. And it forms newer electrical pathways for activating these muscles, and hence more muscle fibers gets into play, so to speak, and hence more power you are able to generate, and hence for the same 1 mile, say 4 or 5 weeks later, you are able to execute it at a much higher efficiency. So these are two things that are already happening. More muscle fibers are getting lengthened, and it gets more power. Secondly, the electrical muscle brain connection is getting strengthened, and more muscle fibers are sort of opening up. These two things are happening already as you're training. Now let us come down to cardiovascular musculoskeletal part of the overall workout. Now, cardio is heart, vascular is blood vessels or blood circulation system, as we all know. Now, for us to be good runners, we all know that our heart should be able to pump as much blood as possible without maximum efficiency, right? If everything equal, somebody is having 50% heart efficiency than the other person, obviously the other person will do 2x better than the first person, because the heart is able to deliver fantastic amount of blood and oxygen to all parts of the body for it to do the job of combustion, using energy, and then providing that kinetic energy as I was speaking about. So as you train, your heart essentially is getting better and better. Or in other words, you are training the heart. You are exercising the heart. When you exercise the heart, it is getting better at pumping. That means more amount of volume of blood is getting pumped out for every sort of compression of the heart. And 2, the efficiency of pumping. That means more amount of blood leakage doesn't go back to the suction side of the heart. Or in other words, for every pump, volume is increasing and efficiency of pumping is also increasing, or in other words, heart is able to pump lot more with minimal effort. That's why you will see heart rate is going down as you train more and more. So there is that. Heart is getting better, more blood is being circulated into the system. Then comes the cardio, the vascular side of things, which is a very, very powerful and interesting thing, magic that is happening. Now, what happens is, think of your blood vessels as a river, tributaries and distributaries. Now, really, because you're not using much, many of the distributaries of this river is sort of dried up because there's no need for the blood to go to different muscles because those muscles are not being activated at all. You remember the previous one I was telling you about the electrical brain connection? When the muscles are not getting activated, it doesn't require any blood. So the small tributaries that reach to these muscles sort of not required, so it's sort of dried up. But when you start activating muscles, when you get into the structured training program, many of these existing tributaries that are sort of dried up and closed out starts opening up. And as a result, more and more parts of your body, the existing muscles are getting blood, and hence it gets activated with an electrical signal. Or in other words, your vascular system, there is a stat somewhere I read, if you do a 16-week regular training, it seems the length of your blood vessels that are quote unquote in play increases by 5 to 10%. That means it's almost like 10 extra percentage of blood vessels have been created. But it's not really created. It is just dried up, distributaries are opened up. And hence your blood circulation is much better to all parts of your body, thereby more muscles get activated. That's the second thing. But there is one more magical thing that happens. Because of this constant controlled overload of our training, which we'll talk about it later on in the season, this overload, essentially brain says, hey, why am I getting overloaded in vascular system? So I don't like overload. I don't like shock. So let me create more blood vessels. Or in other words, new blood vessels are created. That's the magic of our body. So not only existing closed blood vessels are sort of opened up, new blood vessels are created. And as a result, as you keep training 3, 4, 5 weeks in, you are into a different zone. Your heart is getting powerful. Your blood vessels are reaching more parts of the system. More blood vessels are created. Existing closed blood vessels are opened up. Your brain muscle electrical connection is getting better. Because of your strength activity, your length of the muscles are increasing, thereby it is compressing and expanding at a much more powerful sort of way. All of these are sort of exponential impact to your body. It's all like 1 plus 1 is not 2, it becomes 1 plus 1 is equal to 4 because it adds to the other part of the system, and we are not done yet. So cardio, vascular, muscle we talked about, skeletal, your joints. Many joints are not taking the load initially because the muscles that are supporting the joint is very weak. So the load that is acting on those muscles or on those joints are all imbalanced. As a result, you will have pain. It's not taking the load properly. It creates a lot more setup. Best example for that is a knee joint. Early runners will complain of knee joints, and it's nothing to do with the knee. Everybody thinks immediately it's arthritis or some massive problems are happening. Not really. What is really happening is the muscles above the knees, on your thighs, upper thigh, lower thigh, on the side of the knees, the patella, which is the kneecap, which is supposed to be holding in place by a small cartilage, all of this are weak because it's not used properly. But as you train, the muscles that support the joints get stronger. When it gets stronger, the joints are able to do and absorb the load and transmit the load from one direction to another. Every joint, if you think about it, it transmits the load from one plane of action to another plane of action. Knee is the most complicated one, right? It goes from literally a 90-degree change in angle when you have to sort of the force has to move. So the knees are very particular. Same thing goes for hip joint. Hip is a huge joint with so many muscles. We hardly use those muscles because we always sit and we don't train. So most of the hip joint is like a mass. It doesn't do anything much. That's why the hip flexors, the hip abductors, the hip extenders, these muscles need to be in top shape so that your hip comes into action. And once the hip muscles and hip joint comes into action, magic happens because your butt starts taking the load. And once you start running with your butt, You are in a different zone altogether, and we'll talk about that again. But that's what is happening on the skeletal part of your training. So you have a cardio boost, you have a vascular boost, you have a muscular boost, you have a joint or a skeletal boost, and of course, mental strength. At the end of the day, that takes 50% of the overall impact of your training. Listen, guys, as we all know, we are what we think we are, And what happens in running is when you start, you don't believe it. Even if you're return runners, when you start, you are mentally, your mind is trying to protect you. That is the difference between a child and an adult, right? A child, a 2-year-old child, you just ask that child to run. It'll keep running because mind is just free. It doesn't protect them. Mind doesn't even know what is danger, right? Kids don't know what is danger. So they keep running till it gets exhausted. It'll fall down, exhausted. But we as adults, because we have learned so many good things and also some bad things, your mind thinks that, suddenly running a couple of miles is not good for my body. My joints are bad. Back pain, I have a shoulder pain, blah, blah, blah. Let me not do it. So it gives you all the signals to ensure that you don't do it and protect the body. Now, we need to break that. And the way we break it is through RHWB's community and your coach and a structured training program. That is the power of RHWB. That is why RHWB has got more than almost 3,000 runners that has passed through our system. And most of them are first-time runners when they joined RHWB. The reason is mental strength happens when you look at your peers, when you look at your ambience, and you say that, hey, while my mind is telling me not to do it, but I know this person, he's hardly an athlete, he is just right next to me, I know this person for such a long time, he's able to do it, why can't I do it? Let me go and try it out. That is where the mental strength happens. And as you keep doing it, your mental strength actually increases. And we will again talk about this in a separate weekend message. But this mental strength drives various activities. This increase in mental strength drives various activities, gives you the power to be committed, gives you the power to be dedicated and resilience. All of this comes together, and hence you are able to keep doing it on a structured, regular manner. The rise in mental strength is the rise of Phoenix for all of you. So you have the mental strength increasing in addition to the other things that I talked about. And then finally, guys, let us come into the molecular level. At a cellular level, this energy, that kinetic energy that gets created, is essentially, there is this component called mitochondria, which is called as the power cell of a cell, or the power unit of a cell. Put it simply, the more mitochondria per cell you have, it's like having more batteries for that cell. Mitochondria you can't just like that increase it. You have to give controlled loading to these at a cellular level. And brain realizes that, hey, I need to create more mitochondria at a cellular level. And as the brain, while doing all other things, it is also thinking, hey, my body is under a lot of training, stress. So let me increase the mitochondria. This increase of mitochondria at a cellular level provides you a higher level of energy production for everything else same. So if you think about it, folks, as you train, now you are in week 2 or week 3. I think you're in week 3. I'm sorry, initially I said week 2. You're in week 3. What is happening right now is your heart is getting better. More blood vessels are getting created. Your muscles are getting longer. More fibers are getting created of muscle fibers. Your joint is getting supported better, and hence joints are taking a lot more load with them and transmits the load from one plane to another plane in a much more efficient manner. Your brain, electrical signals from your brain to the various parts of the muscles are getting more efficient. Your mental strength is getting better. Your mitochondria is getting better. And the sum of all of this is called as the training effect. This is the aerobic capacity that is being developed. And as a result, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 is equal to 10. And magic happens. That is what is happening. Cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, mental strength, training impact that happens because of a training program. And that is the journey. You all are there. And I want to end this one by answering my own NQC question. Why summer training is so good? Advantages of summer training. Now, what happens is, if you look at all the world record holders, in marathons. Most world record holders will always happen during the fall race season, and you will see maximum big ticket race items are all like in the fall. And the reason is pro athletes, they would like to train in hard summer, so that when it comes to fall, when temperatures go down, things become a lot easier for them to execute the same run, and hence they actually improve the performance. And the reason is when the temperature rises, I think there is some stat that for every 5-degree increase in temperature, your heart rate goes up by some 20 BPM or not. I don't exactly quote it, but you can feel it. When you have an increase in 5 degree Fahrenheit, you will see that your heart rate is 10 to 15% higher than what it used to be, all things same, right? So essentially what is happening is at an elevated temperature, your body is working harder to do it. And what it means by working harder is all the things I just talked about. As long as you're not in a state of shock, that means as long as you're not in a very high heart rate, that means you're reducing your pace accordingly. Body doubles the impact of all the things, that CVMSMS system that I was telling you, double it, because it knows that you are working under a little extra heat condition, and the way it self-governs is getting more power to all of this. So during summer, when you train consistently, all of this are getting extra boost. And then suddenly come fall and the temperature falls. When the temperature falls, it's not as if all your training impact is gone. Training impact is still at a higher level because it is thinking of high temperature. And suddenly when the temperature falls, your heart rate falls, you feel lot more reserve energy and power. And as a result, you will suddenly see that during fall, you are actually increasing your performance quite a bit. And that's why it's fantastic to train in summer, because come fall, that will be towards the business end of a training as well. You're in peak meso or the later half of the training. Things get easier, things get more efficient. You love the runs. You feel, oh my God, what happened today? I just felt like a breeze. That's because of summer training. So keep hard, folks. Make that, make use of this opportunity of training really hard during summer. Of course, take all the precautions that I had mentioned in my previous message. And when you train, the light is there at the end of the tunnel. When you're going to see in a month or so from now, something magical is happening. You have trained for 8 to 10 weeks in heat, and then suddenly temperatures goes down and fall, beautiful colors, all that good stuff. You are ready to conquer the world. Hope all of this makes sense. Thanks for listening, and keep doing the training as you're doing. Congratulations, guys. Take care.